I wrong for refusing to move in with my boyfriend and friend who can't afford the new place without me? I, 25 female, moved in with my boyfriend, 30 male, to help out with him financially. He got stuck outside of his home country, and I was well established. 1 month, he asked me to help with the bills, and I did. The next month, I proposed to move in together since I couldn't afford to cover my bills and part of his. He didn't want to leave his friend, 32 male, with whom he shared an apartment, so I agreed to move in with them. Anyways, I moved to the smaller room without an ensuite bathroom with my boyfriend, and the friend was in the bigger one with the bathroom inside. At first, I thought my boyfriend and I would be sharing bills in half, so we both paid half of the rent, his friend paid the other half, and electricity and water 3 ways. However, the friend asked if I could pay a third of the rent. I didn't know if it was standard, but neither of them were working and it wasn't a burden for me. It was about the same as I was paying for my own apartment before, so I agreed. I did state that once the rent period at the apartment was up, we would move so my boyfriend and I could have a bigger room with the bathroom inside. They both agreed like, yeah. Once the rent was up, they started looking for apartments. We found a house we liked, but it struck me as odd, as the house, although bigger, also had 1 room with ensuite and 1 bathroom outside. I thought, oh, the friend will take the smaller room this time. As you can guess, the friend refused to take the smaller room. I asked my boyfriend about it, and he said, oh, I don't know, let me ask. Well, the friend lost it, saying he wasn't going to take a smaller room. There was no way he was going to share his bathroom with guests and that it was just not happening. I pointed out our previous agreement. We had lived in the smaller room, 2 people, and that if switching for fairness wasn't enough reason, we paid for a more uncomfortable space, 2/3 of the rent. Lastly, the guest, friends of my boyfriend and friend, tended to pee on the toilet seat where I'm supposed to sit, and that's unhygienic and disgusting. I don't want to come back from work to have to clean up the mess of someone who doesn't know how to aim. The friend then started gaslighting me and being rude. I then said that I wasn't moving in with them, for not only the attitude to address the situation, but also the disregard for the financial help I was providing and concerns. Then he called me an asshole because he had already paid the deposit and signed the contract, without informing me that they were stuck in a place they couldn't afford. So, is this some sort of American standard? No matter the space you get, you pay rent equally? Am I the asshole for refusing to move in with them, and after I said yes, causing them not to be able to afford a new place? I found out that my birth parents are married to each other and I have full siblings. I was adopted at 3 months old. I had a dysfunctional family growing up, but I was cared for and loved. Both of my adopted parents passed away in separate car accidents. My dad when I was 17 and my mom 3 years ago when I was 24. I had a semi-open adoption, but my birth parents requested my adoptive parents stop sending them photos and updates about me when I was less than a year old. I had a vague idea of who my birth parents were. I grew up knowing their names and I had several photos of them. I did a DNA test and was matched with 3 full siblings, which shocked me. I was always told they were young and that they barely knew each other and wanted to further their education. About 3 months ago, I decided to Google their names and I found their social media. Turns out they are married to each other now. I stalked them on Facebook a bit and it seems like they have a relatively happy life. I ended up reaching out to my birth mother via Facebook, telling her that I would love to get to know her and that I've had a great life and that I have no expectations. She took a month to respond, and when she did, she said she was surprised that I had reached out and to please not contact any of my siblings as they aren't aware of my existence. I didn't respond for a few days, but I ended up just asking her why she chose to give me up and why she never told anyone about me. She responded and said that I was a NICU baby. She and my birth father were 17 when I was born and they weren't prepared to raise a disabled child. She said at the time that they were under the impression that I would never live independently and that they weren't in a place to have a special needs child. I was again shocked. I definitely was in the lower percentiles for growth until puberty, but according to my grandmother, by the time I was 8 months old, I was hitting all of the markers for regular mental development. I have a master's in mathematics from a tier 1 university. I was an athlete in high school and I never had any issues in school beyond being really horrible in art class. I'm married with a child. I'm a fully functioning adult with a successful career and a family of my own, and it hurts to know I was given up on because of the slight chance I wouldn't turn out perfect. Part of me feels like I missed out on a life with siblings. I was raised as an only child, and that I could still have a chance to know them and love them, and that my daughter would have a chance to have cousins. My youngest siblings aren't even in elementary school yet, and I could have a normal sibling bond with them, or at least be part of their lives from a young age, and I wish that I had that chance. I am not angry at my birth parents for giving me away. I don't hate them. I'm hurt, but I'm not angry. I'm angry that they've requested I not reach out to my adult siblings, and I'm considering doing it anyway. Am I wrong for not giving up the house that I inherited? I, 29 female, was raised in a Christian household. With that came gender roles that were ingrained in me at a young age. My granddad, however, hated that my parents taught us this way, and as I got older, I did too. Because of this, I became very close with my grandparents instead of my own parents. I also have an older brother that my parents labeled the second king of the house. For more info, my grandparents lived in a beautiful house that had no neighbors, many trees, and a garden. They paid off the house after years and was very special to them. My granddad also had problems with his back and a condition that would get worse until he couldn't go on anymore. After my grandmother passed, he got worse and ended up needing at-home care. He didn't want a stranger in his home, so that wasn't an option. My parents preached that it was punishment for all of his sins, so they wouldn't take care of him, and they were planning on putting him in a home. I decided to stay with him since it would just be easier. My job can be worked effectively at home, and he'd get care from someone who isn't a total stranger. In the time I took care of him, we filled the home with the love and laughter my grandmother brought to it. As my granddad got worse, not a single call. Not from my mom or dad or my brother. We were joking about it once and he said, maybe I should just give you Missy, the house's name, instead of your dad. He's just gonna give it to your brother anyways. He laughed after he said that, so I assumed he was joking. Fast forward, the worst happened. I was the one who found him, had to make the call. All of it. As much as I pushed away from my parents, I didn't want them to find out the news from a random person. The funeral was the first time I ever truly connected with my parents in years. We hugged and cried together and we were all vulnerable. But then it came time for the will. Now, it wasn't some telenovela with all the dramatics, but it was intense. The house that was supposed to be my dad's became mine, as well as many other things that my dad planned on giving to my brother. I was accused of manipulating my granddad into giving it to me, and my brother was just yelling. A week after, my brother came to the house in tears. He was begging me to give him the house since his was too small for his wife and baby. He argued that because it's just me and my husband and we don't want kids, I don't need it. I told him to leave and felt horrible. I felt like an asshole and so does my family. He's right, I don't need the house. My job pays me good money and I could easily just live somewhere else. On the other hand though, my granddad wouldn't want him or my dad to have him. I am at a loss here. Am I the asshole? Am I wrong for keeping my name change a secret for 5 years? So my 26 female parents decided to name my sister and I after American states. I have permission to share her name, Arizona, and I was called Pennsylvania at birth. Yeah, my parents are weird. I guess they thought geographical names were cool, but I think there's a huge difference between calling your child Arizona or Dakota or Paris versus Pennsylvania. They're massive Republicans and America lovers, so maybe they wanted to be patriotic. For as long as I can remember, everyone has called me Pen or Penny. My parents insisted that everyone was to call me by my full name, but most people could see how ridiculous my parents are. My sister, 28 female, didn't struggle as much with her name since Arizona just sounds so much better than Pennsylvania, and the Grey's Anatomy character Arizona Robbins made the name seem quite cool as we got older. I was mocked and teased as a child in elementary school because of my parents' insistence on my full name. They would literally berate my teachers for letting me write Penny on my workbooks. When I was 21, I got my legal name changed to Penelope. Most people I had met in college had assumed that I went by Penny as a nickname for Penelope. Even my boyfriend's mother called me Penelope because I was too embarrassed to tell her that Penny was short for Pennsylvania. I kept it a secret from my parents and close family because I knew my parents would go mental and accuse me of disrespecting their choice. I'm getting married this summer to my lovely boyfriend Tom, 31 male, and as you all know, you have to say your full name in your wedding ceremony when doing your vows. I knew I had to fess up about the name change because the alternative would be hoping they would keep quiet when they heard me say, I, Penelope, instead of I, Pennsylvania. I invited them over to my home and I tried to tell them in a really calm way that I had changed my name, but they freaked out. They said I was disrespectful and I was calling their name choice dumb. They refuse to attend the wedding now. I know I'm not the asshole for changing my name, but my parents are particularly pissed about how I kept it hidden for 5 years before telling them. Most people I know agree with them. They think that I should have had the courage to be honest with them years ago so they would have had time to get used to it instead of dropping the news on them 2 months before my wedding and causing all this drama. A few other family members have dropped out and my poor sister, who is the maid of honor, is having a nightmare with this. My parents believe they had the right to know much earlier. I found a spy camera in my room after my stepdad put a surveillance camera in my window. My stepdad, 36 male, installed a surveillance camera positioned outside of my window to scan our backyard while him and my mother and 2 younger brothers go camping. I couldn't go on the trip since I had work, so I was staying home to house sit and feed our animals. My stepdad recently put up new cameras outside, so I didn't see anything wrong with him positioning one outside of my window. Come to find out, the very next day, I had my boyfriend stay over and he found out that the surveillance camera that was ran from outside my window and into my room was being powered by one of those spy camera power blocks. For context, my relationship with my stepdad hasn't always been the best, and and we tend to butt heads a lot. He said a lot of questionable things in the past that I've written off because he's my dad and I would never think he intended to be inappropriate or harmful. He's been in my life since I was 8 years old. Of course, I'm second guessing everything now that I found this camera. It was positioned to point directly at my bedroom door from the far wall, so it has direct view of my entire room, which I change in. I tried desperately to rationalize it and think it was by mistake. Like he grabbed the wrong charger box, or maybe he was just trying to look for intruders. But really, there is no excuse for putting a camera in my bedroom. The camera even had an SD card in it. I'm beyond devastated. My stepdad even suggested I invite my boyfriend over too while they're gone, so I have someone here, which is something he would never do considering he's made it clear before that he doesn't want him over when no one is home. My boyfriend and I are going to go through the SD card to see if there's anything on it. I am at a complete loss at how to even bring this up to my mom. I confided in my aunt and uncle since they live close by, and they have been very supportive of me having a conversation with my mom about it. This whole situation is extremely upsetting. I at least have some family to support me as I navigate this, but I don't even know how to bring this up to my mom. This is obviously going to change everything. She had my 5-year-old half-brother with him. My mind is racing with the consequences this is going to have on our family. Has anyone that has been in a similar situation have advice? How can I do this without causing extreme damage to the family? Although that might be impossible.